Pastor Russ here with hope for today. During this COVID time, I did something that I haven't done in 15 years. That is, I purchased a new car. Well, at least it's due to me. It's a 2019 kind of a silver Toyota Camry. It is a sweet ride, if I must say so myself. But a couple of weeks after I'd purchased that car, I walked out and looked and I noticed this kind of slimy, kind of a dirty kind of film that had covered over my brand new car. And I was thinking to myself, now, did I park under a tree or did just some dust kind of get kicked up on this? But no way was that grime going to stay on my new car. And so that weekend I washed it. A couple of weeks later, I walked out and same thing happened. There was this not grime and dirt so much, but the ash from the wildfires had covered my brand new car. And again, there was this layer of grit and grime and stuff. And again, I said, no way. So that weekend, not only did I wash my car, but I waxed it so I get off that grime and that grit couldn't get on my car. I want you to know that it's possible for us to get too close to our world and get the world's dirt. That's when our thoughts and our hearts begin to be covered with this film of the world's grit and grime. Let me give you some warning signs when that may have happened in your life, in my life. The first one may be when our hearts suddenly are hardened and we reject God's clear word to us. Maybe another sign is when we become callous, we lack compassion to those around us in the world. Maybe it's when you and I have given our lives over to sensuality, or we become indifferent to impurity and greed that creeps into our own life. If you and I experience any of these, we will miss out on all that God has created us to be. So we need to be on guard. We don't need to let this world brainwash us so that grit and grime gets in our life. Paul in Romans 12:2, a verse that we looked at in one of our recent weekend services, simply told us this. He said, don't be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is perfect, good, and pleasing to the Lord. I want you to know that it's key that you and I don't necessarily try to change our behavior, but we first try to let God transform and change our minds. As we've said over and over, God changes us from the inside out. The best way to do that, and the most effective way to do that, is to get God's word into our life and let his word transform our minds. Jesus simply said this of God's word. He said this to the Father in John 17:17, thy word is truth. And it's the truth of God's word that will help us to make sure that layer of grit and grime doesn't overcome and overtake our hearts.